Good morning and welcome to Sunday Story Hour, where we share real-life stories of how human design has helped our guests know themselves on a deep, transformative level. By knowing and trusting ourselves, we develop deeper, more honest relationships and unlock our true gifts. I'm Kathy Bashanko, and my guest this week is Tangie Nadimi, known on social media as the feel-good expert. Yay, I love that. Did I say your last name? I don't even know if I ever asked you.
You actually said it really well.
Oh, good. Okay, awesome. So I actually found Tangie on TikTok, like many other people, and she has quite a following there. So I did a thing. I realized she's a projector, so I recognized her and invited her into our group and asked her to come here and be on Sunday Story Hour. And we've chatted a couple of times since then, and I'm really happy to share her with you and have her share her story. So Tangie, I'd love for you to just jump right into telling people how you found human design and how that made you feel good.
Nice. Yes. Thank you. And I'm glad that you mentioned that we spoke before, because right after the last time that we talked, I said, okay, I'm going to call up my ex-husband on the phone and I'm going to check with him and see if the story that I told you is the same story that he remembers. So as soon as we finished that call, I said, I'm going to verify that this is Win, right? And I always joke with, my friends and followers about like, I wish I had written it in my journal, because everybody is so like stuck on this 7-year thing. What's the exact minute that you're 7 years into your experiment? And so I said, okay, I'm going to call him up and I'm going to ask him, do you remember the same story that I do? And I remembered very clearly, like sitting at our kitchen table, we had a round table. We had just built a brand new house. We had a 4-month-old baby. And I remember sitting at our kitchen table in our brand new house that we had just moved into. So this is May of 2018. And he pulled out on his phone and he said, hey, one of my friends introduced me to this thing. You like astrology. I think you're really going to like it. And so I said, yeah, sure. Show me. And so he pulled this body graph up on his phone. I didn't know that was what it was called at the time. And he showed it to me and I was like, no, babe, you like math. You like algebra and stuff like that. I don't like that kind of stuff. This looks like an equation. No way. Absolutely not. No, thank you. And he's like, no, but just try it, right? Just look it up. And so I looked up my type and it said projector. And I was like, that's not something I could get tattooed on my body. Like that doesn't sound cool to me at all. Like, no, not interested. But obviously I'm a mom of 2 kids and I looked up everybody. And when I looked at my son and saw that he was a manifester, I was like, I'm into manifestation. That sounds cool. I like that. And my son's dad and I had been having, some behavioral things with him. We just didn't know how to handle him.
Wasn't he 4 months old?
I have 2 sons. So,
he's the manifesting generator was 4 months old. Okay.
My cute little sweet manifesting generator that's almost fully defined was, just a little 4-month-old baby that was the easiest. And I had my other son who was just about to turn, what year is this? 2019. So he was just about to turn 5.
Okay. Making a note to myself, go back and edit all the places where I said your manifestor was 5 because I had your kids switched.
It's okay. I mean, they've got a little bit of each other. But my manifestor son was just about to turn 5. So we got a 4-year-old and we've got a baby. And you just couldn't tell him what to do. Like just there, everything made him so irrationally angry. And I thought, I don't know what to do about this. And when we learned human design and his type and his aura, it just all made so much more sense, right? It just became so much easier. Not like overnight, right? That of course we all have our own conditioning and our own things to work through, but having that understanding when he was still pretty small and, 4 years old.
If I had known my daughter was a manifestor before I learned when she was like 18.
Yeah.
Like would have saved a lot of books that I actually traumatized her by the whole bookshelf I had of parenting your strong-willed child when you're, all the things that basically told her that I thought she was horrible. I did.
I bought that same
book. How to
book.
deal with it, right? So,
I bought that exact same book for that exact same child. It's just a manifestor aura. And so when we learned about that, we started to shift the way that, we communicated with him. It was more about informing and less about controlling and less valuing respect and obedience, right? They're here to do something completely different. And so luckily for my kids, I was thinking about this before we got on the call. Most of their adults in their lives are pretty well versed in human design. So there's me, and then my ex-husband that I mentioned, his friend that had introduced him is now his partner, and she was in IHDS when she showed him. And so he's got me, right? That we're actively studying human design, and of course he's interested in it himself. And as far as parenting goes. And then my friends know that this is what I do. And so they honor that as well. So I feel like there's no way to avoid conditioning. I mean, there's no way to avoid human experience. There's no way to be perfect or create a perfect person, but we do parent them in a way that honors their energy and honors that they're very different people. And I think that has been helpful, especially having a rarer type, having a manifestor that it's a memorable child.
For those in the group who are new to this, and manifestors are only 9% of the population, and that internal nonverbal creative flow does not like to be interrupted, and asking them questions, telling them what to do just completely throws off their trust in themselves. And so I'm curious, because I don't think we talked about it. Does he go to traditional school?
No, I couldn't do it. So, yeah. And it's so interesting that you mentioned like not interrupting the creative flow, because one of the rules I had in my house from the time he was tiny, like just an intuitive, like it has to be this way, was never interrupt play, never interrupt play, no matter what, never interrupt play. And so my kids know the rule. Like if we accidentally interrupt them, they will tell us, hey, never play, because the flow state was so evident and obvious. I mean, from the time that he could like move his hands, right? He would just always get into these states of flow. And so I would observe it myself being a stay-at-home mom. And I would tell everyone in the household, never interrupt play. Like if it's bedtime, if he needs to go to the bathroom, let him finish the flow and wait for, because it's not going to last, 2-3 hours. He's in something.
Right.
And in minutes you can hop in, but yeah, never interrupt play is one of our still.
And do you only honor that for him, or is it true for?
No, it's for everyone, but he was the one who made it obvious for us. It was so clear when he was in a state.
So when you found all this and you realized how much it made things sense for you, I can totally relate to that, because that's really what cemented it for me too, was understanding my daughter better. And it's funny how we often, as projectors, right? Because I don't think I even said it, you're a 1-3 splenic projector. And as a projector mom, I can relate to, all moms like to find things that help their kids, right? That's a certain degree true for any type, I think. But as projectors, we learned so much by what we do with others, right? In such a way that it makes sense that both you and I had similar experiences with that connection really coming from that. But then I want to go back to once you said, oh, wow, this makes so much sense for him. I'm assuming at that point you were like, well, let me look at it better for me. And I'm wondering, in quantum human design, we're called orchestrators. Is that a tattoo? Is that tattoo worthy? I don't think so, but is it any better to you? That's not super cool.
Yeah. And I also wanted to answer your question about school. So that was very splenic for me. And I don't know if this shows up in source material anywhere, but I know that when you're pregnant, you share an aura. And I know up until the age 7, like your kids are identifying with you, part of who they are. And so my spleen, I feel, would not let me do anything, right, that was mainstream for my kids. Like natural childbirth, I had this like very clear knowing when I was pregnant of what I should and shouldn't eat. cravings never bothered me. Like it was all very, very, and very clear for me. And where it wasn't, right? Where it wasn't before. And then as I was pregnant, I said, I don't think I can do it, right? I don't think I can send my kids to school. But as soon as my son was born, and a stepdaughter at the same time, who was 9. So as soon as my son was born, I'm observing her and her process in school, and she's a manifestor also.
Oh my
and
God.
my son being born, right? And I just could feel his personality through him, right? And I could just see what would happen, if he were in that type of structure. And I couldn't do it. And this is a phrase I use a lot, which I mentioned to you before. Body won't go, right? Like I can make it logical. I can make it rational. I can believe everything that other people tell me. Like I can say, that makes total sense. Of course. Yeah. He's going to have to do this in the future, but I couldn't do it. There was every time I've thought about it, I'll think it through and maybe I'll make a decision either way, but then my body won't go with me. I've never been able to send my kids to school. And that's not to say anything negative about school. It's just my energy and the way that I'm set up and designed, their energy, the things that my ex and I do for a living, being able to work from home. It was just, this is what it's going to be. And we never saw another reasonable or logical path. They have been to learning communities that are very strong on self-directed learning. We've never attended any kind of school.
Oh, wow. That's great. I don't think you and I talked about that before. Yeah. And my ajna, I already saw, that's like, I would have in the past times say my ADHD was already like thinking of the next question. I'm glad you brought us back. But I really have realized it's in my design that I just kind of think all over the place. But I love that this phrase of yours, body won't go. And I love that despite having that, you also have, an undefined head and ajna, but which I do as well. But I think the conditioning that I had was so strong to use my mind. And I think it's a generational thing too, but I'd always, my mind would always tell my body. It was, I felt the same thing when my daughter, would not want to get on the school bus and she'd be crying. And I knew that before having a child, I'd always thought, well, environmentally speaking, we can't all drive our kids to school because it's bad for them. And I'd had all these mental ideas that then I felt like I was supposed to just power through. And I love that you were already as a new mom, that in touch with your body. And I think that's one of the beautiful things I see about parenting now versus, I could be your mother. You were born after I was already married the first time. So, it's a different generation. And I just love seeing what is happening now as more and more conscious parenting is evolving. And it's really interesting to me to think about what that's going to mean for this next generation. So, but now I want to go back to my other question about your finding out that you were a projector and this not very sexy name. I know it's like, I just think of school when we had those projectors on the wall with the boring slideshow, the boring school movies.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I experienced that in school as well. Yeah. So I studied up on the manifestor pretty well. And to kind of clarify, so my ex-husband introduced it to me. I said, absolutely not. But you know how our phones listen to us. And so my Instagram feed started filling up with human design influencers, people who were putting it in a way that made a little bit more sense to me, right? The language wasn't so shocking and the aesthetics were good. The colors were a little bit more neutral and more muted. And so it started to kind of come through and I started to say, this is interesting. This is something that I could be interested in, but the first introduction just didn't appeal to my senses or, my vibes, right? I'm strongest sense, cognition feeling. And so as that started to come through and it made it a little more digestible, I started to learn a little bit more about myself. But as a projector, you'll know it's hard to see ourselves. It's really hard to see and understand what is this? And with my, undefined G center, or it's a deep question. Like, who am I? Like, what am I doing here? But I started to study it a little. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that's where all your incarnation cross gates, you have your cross of the Sphinx. So all your strongest energies are on that undefined G center. So the world really wants you to know who you are.
I know.
In a really open way, right?
Such an interesting experience to have. And, we're getting there. But I started to learn more from human design influencers than I did the source material, but I'm a first line, right? So I would get my slater to come in, right? Whatever influencer was landing for me at the time, and go cross-reference with the source info. And I'd say, oh, I see how you got there now. I see how you got there to use those words from these words, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was my journey of self-study. And so without knowing myself really well, I kept seeking out this foundational knowledge of human design in general. And I kept going back to the system, right? And kept wanting to understand the whole system and wanting to walk people through the system before I could see myself well at all. So, it took years of study before I could look at my chart and know what was going on. The main thing that resonated for me at the outset was all of the openness. So I only have 2 defined centers, 7 are open or undefined. And all of that like overstimulation, overwhelm, like just pulling in energy from all over the place and not being able to name it, right? Because there's 7 different potential distractions for me. And with it all at once, not being able to put that into words was challenging. And so understanding the energy centers, the way they function and their themes was really helpful to me. And that's kind of where that body won't go language came from, because I knew, okay, I've got only 2 centers defined. I can move things forward in healthy ways. Nobody wants to hear it from me. Nobody wants me to tell them how to move things forward in healthy ways, right? Especially not without an invitation. But that's what my body does naturally. And so many other things will come in and distract me all day, every day, right? Who am I? Where am I going? What do I know? What do I think about what I know? How do I get more attention, right? And how do I get energy? How do I prove it? How do I prove myself? How do I make you proud? How do I make myself proud? How do I get more thorough and more deep, right? It's just all of them talking all at once. So understanding the way that the whole system worked as a projector helped me so much to finally narrow down to myself. But that was kind of a last step for me to understand my own design, after just understanding the system of human design in general, getting to the bottom of it, and then experimenting with it on friends and family and acquaintances. And then I got to the point where I was like, oh, it makes sense. It's what I naturally do. It's what I'm drawn to do. And it's so helpful to know that I'm meant to wait for an invitation, because I was so offended in the past when I only wanted to help, right? I was so bitter, so resentful. I only want to help you. I don't like it when I talk, right? What's wrong with the way that I talk? What's wrong with my energy? What's my face? Why is it so blunt to you? Why is it so abrupt when I offer something from the heart? And I realized, oh, okay, with this projector, or I'm so sensitive, I feel things that they haven't said. And when I say something that someone hasn't said and they're not ready to look at, that is abrupt. So waiting for that invitation and understanding my area of expertise, right? Just figuring out the system that I want to master, where I want to be an expert, and letting that be that, right? And not offering anything to anyone else ever. It's so empowering. It feels disempowering at first, but it's so empowering because I know that energy is coming back. And I know how much energy I've wasted in the past. And even in parenting, I know I'm not my kids' guide. They're not my area of expertise. They have their own destiny. They have their own life. They may invite occasionally for something very specific, and that feels good. And the rest of the time, I'm like, I don't know. Do what you want. Figure it out, right? The third line. Just go. Right? Bump into the wall. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, right. Oh, well, I didn't think about it until you came on. You were talking here, but one of my earlier episodes, I had a 1-3 projector, Alana Heim, And she's really fabulous. So if people are watching and they're resonating with any of that, she's also 1-3 Splenic Projector. And she really talked about what's the contrary nature of being a projector who's here for the other and to guide the other, but everything about yourself is internal, right? The 1-3 is both lines of your profile is about self. So everything about self-discovery is really is about self-discovery in a way that maybe I don't necessarily relate to. And I think about how easy it is for people to lump people into boxes by type. But then I think about how you and I are so different because I have 6 defined centers. I have 3 motors. I just don't have the sacral. Well, I shouldn't say we all have all of it. I don't have it defined, right? We all have all the charts. So and words matter. So I have to be careful how I want to be careful how I say things. And I have a fully defined will center. And when I say fully, I mean all the gates are defined. There's obviously nuances I can still get of feelings in other lines and stuff, but I have all the gates defined. And then I have one whole channel defined. And so you have that completely open will center. And I'm wondering how self-worth has played in your journey, since that's the one center that you have completely open. And traditional human design teaches us that's where we're here to get our PhD in life. You're here to experience it all, right? So has this journey with human design affected how you value yourself?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, I hate that. I hate that egos. I hate that egos. It gets on my nerves every time. And I tell people, during readings and friends, like, if you have a fully open center, it's hard to anchor the energy and you exist on the entire spectrum. And so I know that there are times where I have this inflated sense of self-worth, right? And I'm just like, you can't touch me. Like I'm, whoa, right? I'm just the biggest and the best. And then with no trigger whatsoever, it goes to absolutely nothing, right? I'm a blobfish. I'm a slug. What is my point, right? Like, what am I doing? I have no willpower, no motivation. This is what has kept me up at night, right? This has been the problem my whole life. Why can't I find it? Where can I find it? And I know that that's my distraction, right? And I'll do it anyway because of all of the momentum that has been created in my lifetime in that direction. And so goodness for human design, because I mention this a lot, bringing it into awareness is a really big step, just to be like, oh, there's my distraction again. It's okay that you're here and there's nothing to do. There's nothing,
right.
Like, I don't need to go out and do something to prove my worthiness, to prove my value, to make you proud, to make me proud. I don't need to go do anything. It's going to come up. And in the society we live in, right, with that center being one of the most commonly open or undefined, like, that's what we market to. We market to that inconsistency, to that unworthiness, to that not self. And so it's everywhere that I look. And now when I look out and I see that, I can say, that's talking directly to my not self. That's talking directly to that part of me that thinks I'm not enough and still thinks that I need to prove it, right? And still compares myself to others and their journey. Oh, that's what that's talking to. Okay, that's here again. We'll entertain it for a minute. And then we won't do anything, right? Body won't go. We won't take any action. And we'll come back to it tomorrow and realize that that was absolutely ridiculous. And then we'll repeat the cycle until we get tired of that cycle. We're just going to keep doing that. Me talking to my own body, right? We're just going to keep doing this until we get tired of this repetitive cycle of thinking that there's something. I'm not tired of it yet. I still feel like I have a lot to prove here. But that's part of the wisdom, right? And I tell people, like, if you see strengths in your chart, if you hear like, this is, you've got this, and this is your strength, and this is your wisdom, you hear these positive words, I need you to know that for it to be a strength, you got to experience the whole spectrum of it. And a lot of times it's the hardest thing ever, that's how you become strong, right? Like you don't go to the gym to like flex. You go to the gym to get stronger, and the weights don't change. You keep lifting and then they feel lighter because you're stronger now. So I've realized that about a lot of different parts of my chart, where someone would look at it and say, oh, this is, you can make money here, you can do this there, and this is your strength. I'll look at that and I'll say, oh, yes, of course, because that is the hardest thing I could imagine. Oh, yes, because that's what I'm here to do as a conscious creator, is to see, can I bump up against it, right? A 1-3 channel of struggle, right? How much can I push myself? But what's the point, right? This 38th gate is in my looking at I'm telling y'all, I don't know my own chart. This 38th gate is in my Venus, right? So it's got to be coming from a place of value and not a place of proving myself.
Right. Whereas mine, I have the 38 also, but it's one of my nodes. And yeah, now you got me doing the same thing. It's myself. I knew it was on the conscious side. And so that's interesting. And yeah, so you have that full channel. So I actually, that's your one channel, right? So that's your one consistent energy, is to find the value in the struggle. So here you are talking about that, right?
Another thing I don't want to get tattooed, right? The channel of struggle. The one thing,
right? Yeah, I think there's a better name for it in quantum human design, but it's somewhere. There's so many names and labels that, I can't remember. And I've really decided to not beat myself up about that. There was a part of me in the past that would have been like, you've got to study so you know all the names. But these names are just like people words to try to describe a cosmic energy, right? So they don't really do the channel of struggle is such a icky sounding thing. So you're a splenic projector with the channel of struggle. That sounds sexy, right? But it is amazing energy when you feel it, right? And so, I'm wondering, though, I want to kind of shift a little bit, just because I'm thinking about talking about feelings. And you are the feel-good expert, is what you have named yourself, or someone has named you, and that's your moniker, I guess, is the word. And I know your biggest following is on TikTok. So I'm curious, which came first, the name or TikTok? And if you can tell me a little bit about that part of your journey.
Yeah. So the name actually came to me intuitively while I was still solely doing coaching. So my journey, as a human design teacher, coach, reader, whatever labels, right? Doesn't matter. But my journey into human design started through life coaching. And I realized through human design that I couldn't offer unsolicited advice, right? And I couldn't go on social media and just tell what to do, right? Like I couldn't be your uninvited coach. And so I'm just kind of like trying to feel into it and figure out what I'm here to offer and what I'm meant to do. And I'm a big, big fan of Abraham Hicks. And Abraham Hicks talks so much about feeling and feeling good. And that always landed my system. Like that always, I was like, yes, I want to feel good. I want to feel good every day. And when I don't feel good, that feels the worst. I want to feel good. And that those two words, like feel good, just every time that I listen to Abraham Hicks speak, it would just jump out at me as like almost one of the only things that I heard. And so I knew I didn't want to call myself a human design expert, and I still wouldn't, right? Like I know some things, but I wouldn't call myself a human design expert. But I'm like, I do know how to feel good, because I do know feel bad. Same concept as before, where you exist on this spectrum, and I don't like feeling bad, and I know I have the tools to feel good, and I know how to bring it into awareness and move that feeling of not feeling good to feeling good. And so I kind of pulled my friends because I'm like, oh, does it sound silly, right? Is this even a business name? Should I just use my name? I pulled all of my friends and I said, I'm thinking of calling my business the Feel Good Expert. And they're like, I love it. I'm like, you do? They're like, yeah, it's great. Multiple different people, multiple different conversations. They're like, keep it. It's good. And I'm like, are you sure? Right? In my undefined G, maybe we should change it. Maybe we should be somebody else today. But because I got that outside input and had it reflected back to me, they said, yes, absolutely. And as I continued to learn more about human design, learning my cognition, feeling, right? Learning that the spleen creates this feeling of feeling good and feeling safe, and this intuitive, natural sense about things. And so many other places in my chart, right? I'm struggling to feel good. Everything kept pointing in that direction, but it came before, and it was like a placeholder almost. And we do this as business owners. I don't, if you're a business owner listening, like we'll do these things, we'll have these visions and we'll have these ideas and we'll try to like put our personality into our business, and we'll have these little placeholders of our brand and our logo and our name, and it'll all come with this big vision. And a lot of times we waste time on it instead of offering value to our ideal clients. We'll do all of these back end things like, oh, I have to have everything perfect before I can show up. But that was really the only thing that I had down, was that handle. And I checked everywhere and it was available, right? I got the whole domain, right? I got the handle on every social media platform. And I was like, all right, we're just going to hold on to this. We're just going to allow this one thing about my business to be easy. That's the name of it. And so I already had the TikTok handle. I was trying to do life coaching. I don't know. I was just sharing what I knew and what I knew of feel good and how to, manifest and get into certain vibrations, but nothing was landing. And then I created a video on TikTok about how I knew that my ex-boyfriend was about to break up with me by looking at his design. And I created this video and I pointed out a few things, and it went viral-ish, not viral for TikTok standards, but for a person who had like 100 followers, that was a lot of views. I think it was like 10,000 views, right? Over a couple of months. That was a lot of views. And I said,
we'll have to link that one in our comments afterwards, because I know we all are going to want to see that video.
It's very, I was still, new to it was my first TikTok. So like, don't judge me. And I still had hot pink hair, obvly the undefined.
I like your hot pink hair, but your hair looks fantastic now. So
I like it, but I just can't settle on an identity, as we know. But yes, I posted that video. People ask questions. People ask for follow-ups, right? I got all of these invitations from this one video, but preface, right? For anyone who's a business owner, this is after 2 years of absolutely nothing on Instagram, posting every freaking day, spending all of this time, right? Creating so many reels, trying to, throwing spaghetti at the wall and getting nothing in return.
And then you were an overnight success.
And then I was an overnight success on TikTok, based on what I knew and based on having practiced speaking and being on camera. And so put up, and it created so much momentum for that account because I knew what people wanted to hear from me. Now I was getting invitations, and all of that energy showed up for me, right? I didn't muster it. All of the energy showed up with the questions. And so I continued answering questions. And that's how my account was based on invitation. Was I invited to create that one video? No, I was not. No, I had a shower thought, and I thought, I need to go talk about this. And I went and spoke about it. But because I followed that impulse, that instinct, whatever you want to call it.
I thought you did. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I thought you'd do a shower TikTok where you literally came out of the shower and recorded the TikTok. Like, I think you were either you had your hair in a towel or something. Yeah, like you're like, got to get it now. And I thought that was amazing, right? Because we get so afraid of not doing things perfect. And I think that's why, I think that's why you can get away with calling yourself something like the feel good expert, is because you're just not toxic positivity. You're not this like fake perfect world. You're like real life feel good, because sometimes you don't, right? It feels really genuine. And I think that's why it works for you. Whereas other people could call themselves that and you'd be like, get out of my face. I can't take your fake happy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I feel like that's why I couldn't have success on Instagram, because at the time it was very curated. Everything that you saw was very curated and very perfect. And, like dress a certain way, or your background, your room needs to look a certain. It was all very curated. You need covers on things so that your feed looks curated. It's changed a little bit, but TikTok was never that way. TikTok really, really values authenticity. And so when I went over there, it was almost like I found my people, but I'm still in my deconditioning process from all of the time, effort, and energy that I put in to Instagram, trying to show up looking perfect, right? Trying to make sure that everything I said was clear and articulated and structured. And so you can kind of see that transition if you look through my social media, which I left it all. Everybody's on their own journey. As I try to throw spaghetti at the wall on Instagram and do all of these different curated things and create all of these graphics and do all of these voiceovers because my voice isn't enough, right? And then I show up on TikTok in an authentic way and I get asked questions back to my structure. I go back to my systems and I create series of videos, right? And I do it in the exact same space and always with, a full face. And it created all of this momentum that I would have, invitations and I would have shower thoughts where I was like, I have to say this now or it won't come out the same, or it won't out again, right? I'll lose this transit. I'll lose this energy. I'll lose this idea. And so it has transitioned to like me being very structured and sitting in my chair and being perfect to like, I'll go sit on my couch with no makeup on and my hair sticking straight up and be like, listen, this is what we're doing. And that is part of my design and my chart, something that's been reflected back to me my whole life, my clarity, my openness, and my authenticity. And I'm like, what? I don't know who I am. How can I be authentic when I have no idea who I am? And they're like, I don't know. You just show up with that energy, and having that platform for people to reflect that back to me, and people who, are being objective in their observations. My friends and family can tell me anything and I may or may not listen, but objective reflections and invitations have been super, super helpful for me to understand my own design even deeper, and other people do the same in the way I do.
Right. So okay. This is how my brain works. Like when I'm really, this is how I would tell people, this is how I'm really listening. Cause all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, now I need to just feel that for a minute, right? But I think about, I always like to look at the specifics in the chart and then think about what I know about people. And it's like, you've got this design moon is in gate 11, right? It's all this gate of ideas. And this is what attracts people to you, right? This in Gene Keys, that unconscious moon is our attraction sphere. It's what draws people into you. So they have, so all these fun ideas that you do on TikTok, whether they land or not, is what's really drawing people into you. And I love the way you just kind of, like you've said a couple times, throw spaghetti at the wall. And I know that in my training, when we were talking about gate 11, Karen Curry Parker suggests that people who have this gate, especially as a hanging gate, have an idea book. And I'm wondering, do you plan things out like ideas, or do you have to do it in that moment? Because you said you got to do it while it come out and do it right then. Or do you actually just say, okay, here's ideas for the future when I have the energy for it? I mean, do you just let them go if you don't have the energy?
Oh my gosh, the books I have, and my Pluto, the 28th gate, first line, in detriment, planning things that matter. So this has been like a big lifelong lesson for me because I'm so drawn to planning, right? But I'm like, I get all of these crazy haywire ideas and they're all over the place, but I'm so drawn to put it into a structure, put it into a timeline, put it into a clear plan, put it into a lit planner. So I've wasted so much time, energy, and money buying planners and trying to give my ideas plans, and it just didn't work out. And so now I have on the floor behind me, there are piles of notebooks. I learned I don't like planners. I don't even like lined journals. I buy sketchbooks now, and I just let it, I'm not even drawing, just to be able to write, just to be able to write freely and like get my idea and be able to like put it in physical reality. That's another big one. If you've got, this activity up here, like being able to ground it into my physical reality. My office is covered in Post-its. When all of this comes in for me, all of these perspectives, all of these things that I'd like to share and share my experiences and tell stories, right? Because we're reaching for that gate of curiosity via the channel of stimulation. All of these things that I want to share, they're everywhere all of the time. And so when it really is pressing on me, I will go off some paper. But I've learned like paper that feels more fluid, feels like something I can move around or move my ideas, and that's what I've evolved to. So I have my iPad that has like a protector on it that is paper feel. And so I can write things out and then circle them and move them in different. I love that. That makes me feel so good, right? I will write multiple ideas on Post-its so that I can move them and reorder them. And then I will take my sketchbooks, big ones. They gotta be like, I gotta be able to take up some space. My big sketchbooks, and I will like, draw out diagrams. And there's always like this. I have to be able to ground into reality how we get from here to here, right? And so I'll put it in a place, and as soon as it's grounded in my reality, I can find it again. But if I keep it in my head, I can't find it again when I need it. I just cannot. I can't figure out where to go and pull it and grab it from. And so,
that's the
yes.
problem.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
And this is an unconscious gate, right? And so as soon as I have awareness, I'm like, and it needs to be somewhere. I mean, it goes into my notepad of my phone. If I'm out,
I can't find it in my pads up my piles of Post-it notes either half the time. I don't remember which notebook I wrote it in.
They're everywhere. I mean, they're just everywhere. Post-its everywhere. And if I'm really on, a rant, or not a rant, but on a roll, I guess, like, I'll get the Post-its and I'll put them on their own board.
You got that gate 5, so you're way more organized with it than I am. Mine are just in piles in a tray over there. And I'm like, I'm going to organize these before I throw them out and see what I need to transfer into a to-do list. So
it's everywhere.
So someone just asked, are you a PLR-DRL? And she is a PLR-DRR. So close.
Yeah, I'm real lazy. I'm not active in my environment. I do not have an active body. I have caves. Like I'm real lazy, but I do reach for that like mental structure. I want that. I like that. It's not always there, but I do like to have a strategy.
Right. So while I'm looking at the comments here, the same person, Murky Moo, says, hi, so I'm coming in late, but I think I heard you say you entered this adventure incorrectly. You weren't invited on that first TikTok that generated so much positivity. I hope I got that right. Question, how do you account for the great response you've had since that time? I'll let you clarify that because I think she might have misunderstood. Just that TikTok wasn't invited. It was just...
Yeah. I mean, I was invited to the human design system in general. And then Channel of Struggle and Third Line, I fumbled through it and I made a lot of mistakes and I did a lot of things incorrectly. And I still do things without being invited and I still challenge it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to challenge things.
I don't think we need to be, this is, I know there are people in, look at this. I love you. Okay. Confetti from Zoom. I'm learning all these things. I got balloons the other day when I did this. Let's see if we can do it again, right? I don't know. I did this. Let's get some. Is it going to work? No, it's not going to work. No, I wasn't doing that. That's right. I was sharing my screen and doing circles. So anyway, I think that the whole idea of waiting for the invitation has become this concrete, rigid thing in some human design communities that I don't agree with. We don't need an invitation to exist. We don't need an invitation to feel good. We do best. I don't even want to say we need an invitation. We are best received when we are recognized for our worth and invited into relationship, when we are not pushing our energy on someone. But when you're talking about social media, and just talking, people can scroll past. You're not saying, it's not like by going on TikTok, you're making people listen or making people feel that you chose them specifically to need this advice in a way that your penetrating aura feels uncomfortable. So I don't think we need any kind of an invitation to speak our mind, our thoughts on social media when we're doing it because it's what feels good to us and it's not about them.
Well, and there's a distinction that I'd like to make that I learned the hard way, as I do. When I show up on social media in the energy of telling someone what to do, even if I don't know them, right? Even if it's on a public platform and lots of people have the ability to view it. But when I show up with the energy of managing someone else's energy, trying to make their energy more efficient, telling them what to do without a clear invitation, it never lands. It never lands well. And that made me feel bitter for a long time. But when I show up in the energy of being seen and walking someone through a system, not telling them what to do, right? Like just being like, this system exists and here's the step-by-step to understanding it. And here are the steps that I took as a third line to understand this system. Those videos much better. And that was what that video was. Here's what I've come to understand. Here's what I looked at, right? I'm walking you through the system that I walked through to understand what was happening in my life. And I always tell people I give you foundational knowledge with real life application. That's what I do. I want to give you practical tools and I want to hold your hand and walk you through this system, but I don't like to tell you what to do. And so occasionally people will come into the comments and ask for my specific guidance through their specific chart. And I will walk them through the system as often as I can remember to, right? Like I want my energy to do that, to walk you through the system. I'm a projector, but I don't want to tell you what to do. And that was the mistake that I made when I started on Instagram, was going and showing up and saying, hey, this is how you need to structure your day. This is how you need to live your life. You need to talk. This is how you need to show up in your relationships. For what? I don't know. But I was telling people what to do because I had that pull, right, to manage energy, to help people be more efficient, to have more success in life. But it doesn't land that of guidance doesn't land well without an invitation. And so people can invite me into a reading, right? One-on-one. People can invite me to be their coach one-on-one and ask me a specific question, and I will give guidance, and the guidance lands well. It feels good for both of us. But as I show up on social media, I'm trying to show up in the energy of, this is my aura. I'm a projector. I'm taking in all of this, collective energy, and I'm walking you through the system based on my current knowledge and my current experience. But I don't care what you do. Don't care.
That I think is the key, right? When we're attached to the outcome, we're attached to getting seen, recognized, invited based on what we say. That's where the incorrect. And I even personally don't like the terms incorrect or correct. It's not, human design is not a rule book, right? It's like, it doesn't say once you know what you are, you have to do these things, right? So if you don't want to listen to your strategy of authority, you don't have to, right? But that's a guide that says life is probably going to feel a little better if you do, right?
Right. And it's an experiment. Remember, always it's an experiment. And I love to experiment. I just love to, bump up against it, challenge it, figure it out, fight, struggle. I love to do that. I hate it and I love it at the same time. And so, I'll challenge, and I've gotten kicked out of groups before for challenging that idea that, you have to go to IHDS, you have to be an analyst. That's great. I understand that. And I understand where you're coming from. And I haven't been invited. So what now? No one specifically invited me. And so how could I trust my authority to be there?
Right. Well, it's my thing too. There's a lot of things in certain schools where they're like, you have to do this. And I'm like, well, I already know the knowledge that's in this. So why would I go back, pay that money to do this when you're not going to recognize what I've already done. So clearly this is a different path. And I'm not saying it's the wrong path for someone else, but a path that doesn't recognize what I already am bringing to the table is not the right path for me. So I do want to ask how, as a projector with a very large following now, you get a lot of comments in every video. And how do you keep from just giving away the farm, basically using all your resources, doing all this responding? Because there are people who will basically ask you for a full reading just by asking you questions, right? And so how do you manage that?
I created a system as a projector. Yeah. I mean, I knew what people wanted. I knew what they were looking for. I knew what types of people I was attracting. And so as I created my content, I created it in a structured way, and I created series. And when I finished doing that, it took an entire year. I was able to take all of those videos and put them in a structured way on my website to where you can get an on-demand reading with me for free. That's what right? You're in there, you're in the moment, your authority is telling you something and you want to know more, right? You want to get into the rabbit hole. Cool. Go on my website and get all of the foundations. I want you to have foundational knowledge, and then I want you to give me a clear and explicit invite. And I have the channels for you to do that as well, if that's what your body wants to do. And if it doesn't, I don't care. I'm not attached. And so having that system in place, like even now when people come on and say, oh, I just learned about human design. Can you tell me about my authority? Yes, I can. It's in the authority playlist. Yes, I can. Go to my website and pull up your chart, or it come into my DMs and ask basically for a reading. And I'll say, yes, go on my website, watch all the videos. It'll take you maybe half an hour. Come back and ask me a specific question. That's what I'm here for. I love that. That feels aligned for me. My authority can answer that clearly. But if you come in a very vague sense, my authority feels vague, and I don't like the way that feels. And so I have these channels, right, to answer those questions and I don't go and respond to every comment by any means, right? But if I see something that jumps out to me, or if someone takes the time to reach out to me directly, I always give them a path to what they're looking for. And even if it's not through me, there have been people who have connected with me that my authority didn't agree with. And I'll tell them, like, I'm really, really good at a lot of things. And I feel like the question that you're asking is better suited for this person that I know in the community or outside of it. Go check that out. See how your authority feels over there. You don't like it there, come back, right? I can give you lots and lots of resources based on what I've learned. And I don't gatekeep anything. I don't like the way that feels. But yeah, when people come into my experience, I'm so grateful. I don't even know how I figured that. I don't know where I got the wisdom to do that, but I'm so grateful to be able to point them to a system. And that's what projectors are good at, right? And so I have this system where people come into my world and I'm like, here you go. Here's the next step. And so the next step from there, for me, I feel like I attract a lot of people who would like to do what I do. So the next step is to offer some kind of learning in the way that I do, foundations, right? And in the language that I speak, for people that are resonating with me, for people that, line up with my fractal. They come in and then use their authority to figure out what's next for them. And so that's the next system that I'm off to create. I've got all of the foundations for someone who's brand new to human design. That's what I really wanted when I got started that I couldn't find. So I put that into a system. And then after I knew a little bit, I really wanted all of like to anchor all of these different ideas, right? Like you would hear something about a variable and be like, that sounds cool. Where did that come from? Nobody knows. Somebody knows, but they're not telling me. And so now I want to be able to like anchor all of the parts of the chart and say, here's your foundation. Your foundation is so important. You need to have a strong footing here and then go learn somewhere else. It won't tell you at the outset that this came from this. And that's why we use this language, right? And once you have that, it's not so offensive anymore, is what I've learned, right? These very strong terms that Ra uses are not so anymore because you understand, that wasn't even him, right? Like that came from the I Ching.
Right.
or wherever it came from. And you're like, okay, I understand like why this would have some contrast. So that's my next step for the people who are asking about like becoming readers and what books do I buy and what course I don't know what course to take. So I want to be able to give them those foundations to be able to take the next step as a business owner, as a reader, or as someone who wants to understand their family better, whatever it may be.
Wow. Very impressive. And I want to hear more about that because I think that you're doing some stuff that we're going to talk about, or that in closing, I'd love for you to share like how people can work with you and that sort of thing. But I did want to just share one thing that's on my notes that we didn't get to, and I know we're almost out of time. And that is how when I first found you on TikTok, I know I talked to you about this. My first feeling was, as I'm a projector building a business and still creating my sustainable systems, right? I'm still at the point where, I have this group and I do mentoring one-on-one, and I'm trying to, on the back end, while doing all that, create some stuff that can be like sustainable products I can use that don't require so much energy. So I'm really using that to find will of mine to keep pushing through and do a lot of stuff sometimes. And when I found your TikToks and they were so clear and they were so simple, and I noticed that you were using a chart that looked like it came from the same system I was using. So I went to your website and I ran my chart to see what yours looked like compared to what I was including in mine. And I literally, old me would have cried, because I was like, oh my gosh, she has all of these, every single entry links to a video, and it just goes to one of her things on her YouTube channel, and she explains it all, and it's all done, and it's so easy and it's simple, and each one is only a few minutes long, and anybody can handle this. And I literally got into this comparison mindset of like, kind of like how I felt when I got my first written reading from Christy Ng, her map. I was just like, I'm never doing written readings. I can't do, and we shut down and feel this like, I'm never going to be able to do what they want to do. But, I am not here to do what you do, and I'm not here to do what Christy Ng does. And I can see the beauty in what you're doing and resist that feeling of like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do, but it's just all part of my process of finding what's my way to do it, right? And there's so many ways out there. And I wanted to thank you because that really opened so many possibilities to me as to what can be done. And I'm looking to different things. And don't worry, I'm not copying your idea. I have the gate 8 in my conscious earth, and from Gene Keys says the minute we start to basically imitate, we go back into the shadow, right? So as soon as we find our style and then be like, ooh, I like what they do, and we start to do. So I know that. So I always warn people, just because I like what you're doing, don't worry, I'm not going to copy you. I might be influenced by you, might find my own flair that has something to do with it. But so I wanted to just talk about, or to say thank you for your impact that you had on me, and also want to find out. So yeah, to everybody else, now that I just babbled about that, go get your chart through Tangie's website, because she has a whole different way of doing it that I've never seen anybody else do. And it's really beautiful. And I want to know, or want people to know, what you're doing next. I know I saw something on Instagram. I don't know if you want to talk about here, that you're doing some kind of co-work with somebody on that.
Yeah, a collaboration.
Yeah.
So, yes. And for anyone listening, right? Like, don't compare your day 1 to my year 15, not in human design, but as an entrepreneur. I mean, I have wasted so much time, so much energy, so much money. I've thrown all of the spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. Like, it took me a long time to be this clear in what I do. And even so, a lot of people don't understand behind the scenes, I have one motor and it works in a pulse. And so I'm literally most of the time sitting around and waiting for my next root pulse. And as soon as that shows up, a bunch of stuff gets done. And then I have to sit in the melancholy again and cry and be frustrated and be angry and think that nothing's working, right? And put all of this anger and shame on myself about where I am and where I could be. So everybody's got their own process, right? Everybody's got their unique design. And obviously, if I inspire you to do something similar, that's great, because you can't be me and I can't be you. Go ahead. As long as you're not like a scammer, like using my actual handle and then DMing people saying like, "Good morning, Star Child. I'd like to offer you a reading." Don't do that. I know no one listening is doing it, but that happens a lot. And if you ever get a DM from me, remember, this is human design and I don't initiate.
Right.
Yes. So it took me some time, and it took me some energy, and it took me some tears to get to there. And I still, I'm continuing to create from that space. But honoring my own specific design was really the key to that. And so along those lines, I realized there's so much openness in my chart, and there's so much that I observe in my reality that I think that is so great. I love that. Right. And so instead of saying, I wish I had that and I wish that were me, I said, well, I'll just collaborate. I'll just take that energy and, add it to mine, and we'll see what we come up with. And so it's really interesting if you're well-versed in human design. One of my friends has the money channel, and she's just really managing resources. One of my friends has the channel of surrender. She's excellent at marketing, right? And crafting the message. She's natural. And then I've got this channel of struggle. Like, what's your purpose, right? Like, what are you doing here? Like, let's figure out your design and who you really are. Let's validate and give you permission to really live your purpose. And so when I added those three things together, I was able to bring together my two friends and I and say, well, let's offer this more well-rounded approach to starting a business. That's not my content, right? That's not specifically my niche or my audience. My audience generally is someone who's brand new to human design that wants to learn. They want to learn the basics, and then I'll go on that journey with them. And so knowing that my friends had different strengths and different audiences, and what my audience like me, they also would enjoy from them, right? As they take their next steps. We came together, we had a few meetings, and we talked about that while looking at our respective designs. And we said, okay, this is how we can help someone in a very efficient way. We've got 2 projectors in the group and 1 manifesting generator. This is how we can help in an efficient way, like give you a little bit of boost, give you a little momentum in your business, starting with my friend who's really good at resources, the 5-1 manifesting generator. She helps you create a vision, right? Like when you can see the big picture, you can understand the resources that you need, whether it be time, energy, money, support people. But you've got to be able to have the vision first. And that's what she does really well. I'm day 2, and I help people understand their specific design, how to use their energy and their aura. And then on day 3, once you have those 2 foundations, now who are you talking to, and what are you saying to them, and what are you expecting in return? Like, what is the offer that you're providing? And I'm shocked at the pricing. It's $47 for a 3-day boot camp. I was like, you sure, guys? And they're like, yes, it's our first one together. Let's see how it goes. But yeah, it's $40 for a 3-day boot camp. So it starts on October 13th, I think. And each day you've got a different speaker. Friday the 13th. I know. I love that. I'm like so witchy. Each day you've got a different speaker. I'm one of the speakers. And I think it's a really good, first step, right? Or if you're already in business and you're feeling like, I want to scale, I'm feeling stuck where I am, and I have tunnel vision where I am. Starting over with that visualization, looking at the big picture, getting another perspective on your design, and then now taking that information and going to your marketing will be helpful. So that's the current offer, and then obviously my website's thefeelgoodexpert.com. Tons of free resources there. And if you're on my email list, I will share more. I haven't done it yet. It's on my to-dos. I'll share more about the Metaphysical Marketing Bootcamp is what it's called. And I'll share about any courses I have coming up. They should be coming to completion next month. Very excited. So, we're always changing, learning, and growing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We're actually a little bit over, so I don't mean to be abrupt here, but I really want to thank you and everybody who joined live and in the replays. So every week we share stories of how my guests have come to understand themselves in a more loving and empowering way through the lens of human design. How you think and speak about yourself matters. Human design can show you the reframe, not only for your own story, but the story you tell yourself about your relationships. If you're ready to start living a better story, I'd love to help guide you. You can DM me, or you can set up a free discovery call. You can find me in the Intuitive Human Design group or at kathybashanko.com. And Tangie will put her contact info in the comments as well. And I'll put that in the details when I put this on YouTube. Thank you so much. And see you next week, everybody.
Thank you, Kathy.